What if I told you that the most dangerous fat in your body is completely invisible to you? You can't pinch it. You can't feel it under your fingertips. You might not even see it in the mirror. But right now, if you're carrying excess weight around your midsection, there is a type of fat wrapping itself around your liver, your pancreas, your intestines, slowly and silently disrupting every major metabolic system in your body. It's called visceral fat, and it is not just a cosmetic issue, it is a metabolic emergency. Here's what most people don't understand. You can look relatively thin and still have dangerous levels of visceral fat. Researchers call it TOFI, thin outside, fat inside, and the people carrying this invisible burden are at significantly elevated risk for type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, stroke, and certain cancers. Harvard Health researchers have identified visceral fat as biologically active tissue. It actually functions like a rogue organ, secreting inflammatory chemicals and disrupting your hormones around the clock. So why is it so hard to get rid of? Because most people are fighting the wrong battle. They cut calories, they jog on a treadmill, they avoid butter and eat fat-free yogurt, and yet the belly stays, the waist doesn't shrink, the energy stays low, the inflammation continues. The reason this happens is that visceral fat isn't just stored energy. It is the symptom of a deeper metabolic dysfunction, one rooted in insulin resistance, chronic inflammation, a stressed liver, and a hormonal environment that has been hijacked by the wrong foods. Today, we're going to cut through all the noise and talk about the root cause, and more importantly, the solution. I'm going to walk you through 4 specific foods backed by real clinical science that you can eat every single day to begin dismantling the metabolic conditions that allow visceral fat to survive. Not supplements, not powders. Real food with real measurable physiological effects on the very mechanisms that create and sustain visceral fat. And if this kind of science-backed practical health content is what you've been looking for, consider subscribing. I post new content like this every day, designed to help you optimize your metabolism naturally, without medication, without gimmicks, and without confusion. Let's get into it. If there's one food that I would argue is the single most underappreciated tool for attacking visceral fat at its root, it is fatty fish. Salmon, sardines, mackerel, anchovies, herring. These aren't just protein sources, they are concentrated packages of metabolic medicine. Here's what's really going on inside your body when visceral fat accumulates. Think of your liver as the command center of your metabolism. Everything you eat passes through it. Everything gets processed, sorted, and either used or stored. When you eat a diet high in refined carbohydrates and fructose, which describes the modern Western eating pattern, the liver begins to take on fat. Not the fat you eat, but fat it manufactures from excess sugar and insulin signaling. This is called fatty liver disease. And here's the critical connection that most people miss. Fatty liver is not just a consequence of visceral fat, it is an accelerator of it. When your liver is clogged with fat, its ability to regulate insulin drops. Insulin levels rise, and visceral fat stores go up. This is the cycle you need to break. And omega-3 fatty acids, specifically EPA and DHA found abundantly in fatty fish, are one of the most clinically validated tools for breaking it. A randomized controlled trial published in the journal Nutrients found that overweight men who supplemented with omega-3 fish oil for 12 weeks showed measurable reductions in hepatic fat, the liver fat that drives the cycle I just described. Separately, research confirms that omega-3 fatty acids increase levels of a fat-burning hormone called adiponectin. When adiponectin is high, your cells respond better to insulin, your liver burns fat more efficiently, and visceral fat stores begin to shrink. Let me give you an analogy. Imagine your metabolism as a fire. Visceral fat is like wet wood. It doesn't burn well, and it generates a lot of smoke in the form of inflammation. Omega-3 fatty acids are like the kindling that gets the fire going again. They don't just add fuel, they improve the combustion environment so your body can actually burn what it needs to burn. Beyond the liver, omega-3s reduce chronic low-grade inflammation, the same inflammation that visceral fat produces and feeds on. Studies have shown that EPA and DHA lower levels of inflammatory markers like IL-6 and TNF-alpha, which are directly secreted by visceral fat cells. This creates a positive feedback loop. Less inflammation means less metabolic disruption, which means the conditions for visceral fat storage begin to dissolve. Here's what you need to do. Aim to eat fatty fish at least 3 to 4 times per week. A serving of around 4 to 6 ounces is sufficient. The best options, ranked by omega-3 content, are sardines, Atlantic mackerel, wild-caught salmon, anchovies, and herring. If fresh fish isn't always accessible, canned sardines in water or olive oil are an excellent and affordable daily option, and in many ways, among the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. The goal is consistency. You don't need a perfect diet, you need a strategic one. Eating fatty fish regularly is one of the highest leverage changes you can make for your liver, your insulin sensitivity, and your visceral fat levels. Now let's talk about one of the most researched natural compounds for metabolic health, and one that billions of people in Asia have consumed daily for thousands of years, in cultures where visceral obesity has historically been far less prevalent than in the West. Green tea. But I want to be precise here because this is not just about drinking any warm beverage. The active compound at work is a specific catechin called EGCG, epigallocatechin galat. And the research on what this molecule does inside your fat tissue is genuinely fascinating. Your fat cells, particularly visceral fat cells, are not passive storage units. They are metabolically active. They have receptors, they receive hormonal signals, and they contain a family of enzymes that regulate how much fat gets stored versus burned. EGCG, the primary catechin in green tea, has been shown to directly influence these enzymatic pathways. It inhibits an enzyme called fatty acid synthase, the enzyme your body uses to manufacture new fat from carbohydrates. Less fatty acid synthase activity means your body converts fewer of the carbohydrates you eat into visceral fat. At the same time, EGCG increases a process called thermogenesis, the production of body heat as a byproduct of burning fuel. Think of it this way. If your metabolism is an engine, thermogenesis is the engine running in a higher gear. It burns more fuel at rest, without you having to do anything different. Research published in the journal Obesity found that a green tea extract high in catechins reduced body fat and cardiovascular risk factors in human subjects, not through calorie restriction, but through genuine metabolic shifts. A double-blind, placebo-controlled randomized trial specifically studying adults with high proportions of visceral fat found that catechin-enriched green tea beverages produced measurable reductions in visceral fat area over 12 weeks. These aren't minor statistical blips. They represent real changes in the fat surrounding the organs. There's another dimension here worth explaining: insulin sensitivity. EGCG has been shown to improve insulin signaling at the cellular level. Remember, chronic high insulin is one of the primary signals that tells your fat cells, especially visceral fat cells, to keep storing. When EGCG helps lower that insulin signal, the body begins to shift from storage mode to burning mode. Here's your protocol. Drink 3 to 4 cups of brewed green tea per day, ideally spread throughout the day rather than consumed all at once. The most critical window is before or with meals. This timing maximizes the insulin blunting effect. Use loose leaf green tea or minimally processed tea bags rather than sweetened bottled green tea products, which often contain more sugar than catechins. Matcha, a powdered form of shade-grown green tea, contains substantially higher catechin concentrations than steeped green tea and is an excellent daily option. If this is resonating with you, if you can see the scientific logic behind why these foods work, consider subscribing and sharing this video. There are millions of people fighting visceral fat with incomplete information. Let's change that together. Now we're going to talk about a fat that reduces fat. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but that is precisely the kind of paradigm shift that modern metabolic science demands. Extra virgin olive oil. Let me explain why this is not just a healthy fat in a general sense, but a clinically proven visceral fat fighter with a specific physiological mechanism that sets it apart from every other cooking fat. The Direct Plus trial, led by researchers at Ben Gurion University of the Negev, Israel, and published in BMC Medicine, followed 294 participants over 18 months in a rigorously controlled dietary intervention. 3 groups were studied: a standard Mediterranean diet group, a green Mediterranean diet group, and a healthy dietary guidelines group. The green Mediterranean diet was built on a foundation of olive oil, walnuts, and polyphenol-rich plant foods, with a daily intake of green tea and minimal red meat. At the end of the trial, visceral fat was measured via MRI. The results were striking. The green Mediterranean group showed double the visceral fat reduction of the traditional Mediterranean group. So what is olive oil actually doing inside your body? Extra virgin olive oil, as opposed to refined olive oil or other processed cooking oils, is extraordinarily rich in 2 classes of compounds: monounsaturated fatty acids, primarily oleic acid, and polyphenols, particularly oleocanthal and oleuropein. The polyphenols in extra virgin olive oil behave like natural anti-inflammatory agents. Oleocanthal has a mechanism of action similar to ibuprofen. It inhibits the same inflammatory enzymes. Chronic low-grade inflammation is the fuel that keeps visceral fat alive. When you systematically reduce that inflammation through daily olive oil consumption, you are starving the visceral fat of one of its key sustaining conditions. The oleic acid component addresses a separate but equally important mechanism. Oleic acid improves the sensitivity of your cells to insulin, the master hormone of fat storage and metabolism. When your cells respond better to insulin, the pancreas doesn't need to secrete as much of it. Lower circulating insulin means the signal to store visceral fat is turned down. Let me offer you an analogy. Think of visceral fat as a fire burning inside your body. Ultra-processed foods are the gasoline being poured on it. Trans fats are more gasoline. Refined sugars are the kindling. Extra virgin olive oil is the fire extinguisher. It doesn't just stop adding fuel, it actively suppresses the inflammatory combustion environment that keeps the fire going. Here's what you need to do. Use 2 to 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil daily. The quality matters enormously. Look for dark-bottled, single-origin, cold-pressed olive oils with a recent harvest date. The polyphenol content in cheap or old olive oil is a fraction of what it should be. Drizzle it over vegetables, use it to finish cooked dishes, or take it directly by the spoonful, a practice common in Mediterranean cultures. Do not cook at extremely high heat, as this degrades polyphenols. This single swap, replacing refined seed oils and processed fats with extra virgin olive oil, has the potential to meaningfully shift your metabolic environment within weeks. The 4th and final food category may surprise you, not because it's exotic, but because it's so fundamental that most people overlook its profound metabolic power. Soluble fiber foods, specifically legumes, lentils, chickpeas, black beans, kidney beans, along with oats and ground flaxseed. These 3 sources share a common mechanism that directly targets visceral fat through 2 pathways that nothing else touches quite as effectively: the gut microbiome and the insulin response. When you eat soluble fiber, the kind that absorbs water and forms a thick gel in your intestines, it slows the movement of food through your gut. This has a direct and measurable effect on how quickly glucose enters your bloodstream after a meal. Slower glucose entry means a gentler, lower insulin spike. And remember what we established at the beginning. Chronic high insulin is the primary driver of visceral fat storage. Every meal you eat that blunts the insulin response is a meal that does not add to your visceral fat burden. A large observational study involving over 1,100 adults found that for every 10 grams of additional soluble fiber consumed daily, belly fat gain decreased by 3.7% over 5 years, without any other dietary changes. That is an extraordinary finding. It means that simply adding more soluble fiber to your existing eating pattern without removing anything can significantly alter the trajectory of visceral fat accumulation over time. Now, the second mechanism, the gut microbiome. When soluble fiber reaches your large intestine, your gut bacteria ferment it and produce short-chain fatty acids, molecules like butyrate, propionate, and acetate. These short-chain fatty acids are not just waste products of fermentation. They are signaling molecules that directly communicate with your fat cells, your liver, and your immune system. Butyrate, in particular, reduces intestinal inflammation, strengthens the gut lining, and, critically, improves insulin sensitivity in peripheral tissues. A healthier gut microbiome correlates directly with lower levels of visceral fat. Think of soluble fiber as the architect of your metabolic environment. It doesn't just slow glucose absorption in the short term, it rebuilds the gut ecosystem that regulates inflammation, insulin signaling, and fat metabolism over weeks and months. Here's what you need to do. Aim for 25 to 35 grams of total fiber per day, with a significant portion coming from soluble sources. 1 cup of cooked lentils provides approximately 16 grams of fiber and is one of the most nutrient-dense, affordable, and metabolically powerful foods available. A bowl of rolled oats in the morning provides around 4 grams of soluble fiber, along with beta-glucan, a specific type of soluble fiber with its own clinical evidence base for reducing blood sugar and LDL cholesterol. 1 tablespoon of ground flax seeds sprinkled on food adds lignans, omega-3 alpha-linolenic acid, and additional soluble fiber with anti-inflammatory properties. The strategy is simple. Build every meal around a fiber anchor. Start the day with oats or add ground flaxseed to a smoothie. Make lentils or chickpeas the protein and fiber base of at least 1 meal daily. Add beans to salads, soups, and grain bowls. Now that we've walked through each of the 4 foods individually, I want to zoom out and show you how they work as a unified system, because understanding the logic makes the protocol stick. Every one of these 4 foods, fatty fish, green tea, extra virgin olive oil, and soluble fiber foods, targets visceral fat through 1 or more of the same 4 root mechanisms. First, insulin dysregulation. Visceral fat cells are uniquely sensitive to insulin. When insulin is chronically elevated, which it is in anyone eating a high glycemic, high refined carbohydrate diet, those cells receive a persistent signal to store fat and resist releasing it. Soluble fiber blunts the post-meal insulin spike. Omega-3s improve cellular insulin sensitivity. Oleic acid in olive oil further sensitizes insulin receptors. EGCG in green tea modulates insulin signaling at the enzymatic level. All 4 work on the same root cause from different angles. Second, chronic inflammation. Visceral fat is not just stored by inflammation, it produces it. Harvard researchers have described visceral fat as a rogue endocrine organ, releasing inflammatory chemicals called cytokines into the bloodstream, disrupting organ function. Omega-3s lower inflammatory cytokines. Olive oil polyphenols inhibit the same enzymes as anti-inflammatory drugs. Green tea catechins reduce oxidative stress in fat tissue. Soluble fiber feeds bacteria that produce butyrate, which reduces gut and systemic inflammation. You are addressing inflammation from 4 distinct directions simultaneously. Third, liver health. The liver is the gateway organ of metabolism, and fatty liver is both caused by and causes visceral fat accumulation. Omega-3 EPA and DHA specifically reduce liver fat. Fiber improves the gut-liver axis, reducing the toxic load that reaches the liver from the intestines. Olive oil polyphenols have hepatoprotective properties. Fourth, the gut microbiome. Modern research increasingly points to the gut microbiome as a master regulator of metabolic health. An unhealthy gut is directly associated with obesity, insulin resistance, and elevated visceral fat. Soluble fiber is the single most powerful dietary tool for improving microbiome diversity and function. Polyphenols from green tea and olive oil also selectively feed beneficial bacteria while suppressing pathogenic ones. Here is what to eliminate alongside these 4 foods, because no protocol is complete without addressing what is fueling the fire. Refined fructose and added sugars are the single most potent drivers of visceral fat accumulation. Fructose is preferentially metabolized by the liver and directly converted to hepatic and visceral fat. This means sodas, fruit juices, sweetened yogurts, and processed snacks are actively building the fat you are trying to destroy. Trans fats, found in many fried and ultra-processed foods, promote visceral fat storage and severe inflammatory signaling. Refined seed oils, like soybean, corn, and canola oil, have an unfavorable omega-6 to omega-3 ratio that promotes the same inflammatory state that visceral fat thrives in. The combination of adding the 4 foods we've discussed while systematically removing these 3 categories is not a diet. It is a metabolic reset, Let's make this completely concrete. I want you to leave this video with a protocol you can begin tomorrow morning. No special equipment, no expensive supplements, no counting calories. Start your morning with a bowl of rolled oats topped with 1 tablespoon of ground flaxseed, a small handful of walnuts, and a drizzle of extra virgin olive oil. I know olive oil on oatmeal sounds unusual, but the combination of soluble beta-glucan fiber from oats with the monounsaturated fats and polyphenols from olive oil creates a breakfast that generates one of the lowest and most stable insulin responses possible. Your first meal of the day sets the hormonal tone for the next 6 hours. Pair this with your first 1 to 2 cups of green tea, brewed from loose leaf or high-quality bags without added sugar or sweeteners. This is your morning thermogenic protocol, gently activating fat oxidation before the demands of the day begin. Build your lunch around a legume base, a bowl of lentil soup, a chickpea salad with spinach and cucumber, or a black bean and vegetable stir-fry. Add extra virgin olive oil as your dressing base, mixed with lemon juice, garlic, and herbs. It becomes one of the most anti-inflammatory condiments you can consume. Aim for 1 to 2 tablespoons in this meal as well. Your midday meal should also include dark leafy greens, which provide magnesium, a mineral critically important for insulin sensitivity and one in which the majority of adults are deficient. Drink your 3rd cup of green tea here, before or with the meal to blunt the post-meal insulin response. Make dinner your fatty fish meal 3 to 4 times per week. Baked or pan-seared wild-caught salmon with roasted vegetables finished with olive oil, canned sardines on whole grain toast with avocado, mackerel with a lemon herb dressing. This is not complicated food. It is strategic food. The omega-3s you consume at dinner will work through the night while your body undertakes its repair and metabolic reset during sleep. On nights when you don't eat fish, prioritize another protein source with a large serving of fiber-rich vegetables and legumes. The fiber protocol should be non-negotiable daily. And here's something critical that most people ignore. Sleep is not separate from this protocol. It is part of it. Harvard research confirms that adults who sleep 5 hours or less per night accumulate significantly more visceral fat over time. This is because sleep deprivation elevates cortisol, the stress hormone, which directly signals visceral fat cells to store more fat and resist breakdown. Aim for 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep every night. It is as metabolically important as anything you eat. Here's the summary at a glance. Fatty fish, 3 to 4 times per week, for omega-3s, liver fat reduction, and adiponectin support. Green tea, 3 to 4 cups daily, for EGCG thermogenesis, fat oxidation, and insulin sensitivity. Extra virgin olive oil, 2 to 3 tablespoons daily, for polyphenol-driven anti-inflammation and visceral fat reduction. Soluble fiber foods, legumes, oats, flaxseed, at every meal, targeting the insulin response and the gut-liver metabolic axis. This is not a temporary fix. This is a metabolic lifestyle, and the research supports it completely. Let me bring this full circle. At the beginning of this video, I told you that visceral fat is not simply stored energy. It is a biologically active, inflammatory, hormonally disruptive tissue that sits at the center of some of the most serious chronic diseases we face today: heart disease, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's, and cancer. And I told you that most people are fighting the wrong battle, counting calories, restricting fat, running on treadmills, while the real root causes continue operating unchallenged beneath the surface. The primary engine of visceral fat is chronic insulin dysregulation, driven by a diet high in refined carbohydrates, fructose, and ultra-processed foods. Break the insulin cycle, and you break the most powerful force-sustaining visceral fat. Fatty fish, through EPA and DHA omega-3 fatty acids, directly targets the liver fat that perpetuates insulin resistance, while simultaneously reducing the inflammation that visceral fat depends on. Green tea, through its catechin EGCG, activates thermogenic fat burning, inhibits fat storage enzymes, and improves insulin sensitivity at the cellular level. Extra virgin olive oil, through oleic acid and polyphenols, suppresses the inflammatory environment that visceral fat lives in while improving insulin receptor sensitivity. The Direct Plus trial showed that an olive oil and polyphenol-rich diet produce double the visceral fat reduction of a standard Mediterranean diet over 18 months. And soluble fiber foods, legumes, oats, and flaxseed reshape the gut microbiome, blunt post-meal insulin spikes, and produce short-chain fatty acids that reduce inflammation and improve metabolic function at every level of the system. These are not isolated interventions. They are interlocking mechanisms. Each one makes the others more effective, and together they address the root cause, not just the symptom. Now here is my challenge to you. Pick one of these 4 foods today, just one, and add it to your next meal deliberately and intentionally. Maybe it's a cup of green tea tomorrow morning. Maybe it's swapping your cooking oil for extra virgin olive oil tonight. Maybe it's opening a can of sardines you've been avoiding. Start small, stay consistent. Track how your energy changes. Notice how your appetite shifts. Pay attention to your waist circumference over the next 4 to 6 weeks. Your body will respond because the biology is real, the mechanisms are real, and the science is on your side. The goal is not perfection. The goal is a consistent daily practice of feeding your metabolism the signals it needs to function the way it was designed to. If this video added value to your health journey, please give it a like and subscribe to join a growing community of people who are serious about optimizing their health naturally, without medication, without confusion, and without giving up the foods that make life worth living. I'll see you in the next one.